Call of Duty Black Ops is already a gigantic success. It broke opening day sales records, raking in $360 million in the US and the UK alone. If you're one of the few gamers left on the planet who hasn't at least tried Call of Duty Black Ops yet, hopefully our video review will help you make an educated decision before shelling out $60 on Activision's latest first-person shooter.
Pleased to meet you. Hope you guessed my name.
With the former heads of Infinity Ward now working for EA instead of Activision, a lot of gamers are worried that Treyarch cannot carry the Call of Duty torch. Those gamers can rest easy because Black Ops is just as good as any Infinity Ward entry to the series, and in almost every respect, it's a more refined experience than Modern Warfare 2.
Everything is ready.
Gear up, boys.
Say about the bar, Carlos. No problem. My men will dispose of the bodies.
Black Ops sets gamers in the Cold War, partaking in dangerous missions in an attempt to prevent World War III from happening. This time around, the storyline and the characters are more fleshed out, creating a more personal experience than every other Call of Duty game before it. Since Activision is no longer focusing as heavily on historical accuracy within the Call of Duty series, they need to start telling better stories. And Black Ops does that, but categorically this falls somewhere between historical fiction and historical science fiction. The missions themselves are designed around the story instead of vice versa. The missions set in Vietnam are some of the most visceral war experiences we've encountered since Call of Duty 2. The weapons stay true to the time period they're from, and since Black Ops spans a very large window of time, the weapons presented in the game are numerous and varied. Like Call of Duty World at War, when an enemy is shot with a heavier weapon type, limb dismemberment tends to occur. It got to the point where we were intentionally aiming for our enemy's legs just to see the game temporarily glitch as soldiers' torsos would leglessly hover in space. Most enemies carry similar weapon types, but with varied attachments like grenade launchers and different scopes, which is a nice addition to the single-player portion of the game. Some of the new weapons worth mentioning are the Spaz 12 shotgun with incendiary rounds and the crossbow with exploding tip bolts, both of which are used far too infrequently. The explosive tip arrows are the coolest ammunition type we've seen this generation of gaming, and we want more. Graphically, Treyarch didn't hold back as each mission has a completely different feel from the last. Players will fight in dry wastelands, snowy mountaintops, humid jungles, and everywhere else in between. Facial animations seem to have also gotten an uplift.
At that moment, every fiber of my being yearned to put an end to his wretched life. But I was a soldier then.
True to Call of Duty form, most doors can only be opened by your fellow squadmates, which is just as annoying as always. The single-player portion of the game is criminally short. It will only last between 5 and 6 hours depending on your skill level and whether or not you skip the cutscenes. A noticeable portion of the game, you need to follow a squad leader of sorts who constantly has the giant word "follow" over top of his head. Functionally it works, but it is a little visually distracting, and it might pull you out of the experience.
Yeah, whiskey go.
The multiplayer is a very fast-paced shooter experience, pitting 12 players versus 12 players in relatively small maps. It's more of the same Modern Warfare multiplayer experience, but with new perks and maps. The RCXD, radio-controlled explosive device, is quite possibly the freshest and most entertaining new perk added to the bunch. Also making their return are the zombie survival matches from World at War. New to the series is the top-down shooter Easter egg called Dead on Arrival, which plays similarly to the arcade classic Smash TV. Both Zombies and Dead on Arrival are playable both in single-player and multiplayer format. And yes, you can also play the classic text adventure Zork by escaping from your interrogation chair in the main menu. Since Modern Warfare 2 just came out last year, this does feel like a money grab move on Activision's behalf. Because people are buying more and more copies of the newest Call of Duty, Activision will probably continue to produce as many Call of Duties as quickly as they can. Yes, this does feel just like a more refined version of Modern Warfare 2. The differences are noticeable, but they aren't that great. And with each entry to the series, fewer and fewer improvements will be implemented in future Call of Duty games. If this continues, the Call of Duty series will become the Madden of shooters, if it hasn't already. With that being said, we are worried that this might be the last Call of Duty that will contain free online multiplayer based on the cryptic message of free multiplayer with every purchase of Call of Duty in the lobby screen. It has always been free. Why would this entry be any different? If you're a die-hard Call of Duty fan, of course this is worth purchasing. The graphics are wonderful, the story is an improvement over past entries in the series, and based on the gamers we've played with, most seem happy with the perk changes and improvements in multiplayer. However, if your interest is only passing, then a rental will do you just fine. The short single-player campaign and the few Easter eggs available won't be enough to keep you occupied for more than a few days. And if you don't plan on spending hours and days playing the multiplayer portions of the game, then it's simply not worth the full retail price.